Dune, the 1984 adaptation of Frank Herbert's legendary sci-fi epic, the cinematic equivalent of trying to fit a sandworm into a carry-on suitcase. A movie so divisive that fans of the novel cried in disappointment of the Muad'Dib. Lynch disowned it, and Universal Pictures begged audience to please, for the love that is all Arrakis, read this glossary before you watch the film. Today, we're diving headfirst into the space-laden, sandworm-ridden chaos to figure out exactly why this epic adaptation didn't work. So, grab your still suits, say a prayer to Shah Halud, and keep your glossary handy, spice heads, because we're about to navigate the desert of confusion that is David Lynch's Dune. Spoiler alert, this journey is going to be rougher than a Fremen worm riding session. Also, warning, this video is going to be extremely nerdy because I love Dune. I did not plan this, but February has been the Dune takeover, the David Lynch takeover. Before we can talk about why Dune didn't work, we need to appreciate the cultural and intellectual juggernaut that is Frank Herbert's Dune. So, in case you didn't know, published in 1965, Dune is the kind of novel that not only defined a genre but reshaped it entirely. Frank Herbert wasn't just creating a story, he was constructing an intricate tapestry of politics, ecology, religion, and human ambition. Think of it as the sci-fi equivalent of The Lord of the Rings, but with fewer hobbits and more galactic intrigue.
You've been officially labeled a disturber of the peace.
Frank Herbert was a journalist, photographer, and ecological thinker before he became a novelist. His interest in ecology and human systems was sparked when he visited the sand dunes of Oregon. He observed how fragile ecosystems were manipulated for human gain, which inspired the planetary ecology of Arrakis. Herbert wasn't just writing about intergalactic space empires, he was examining human nature, the consequences of power, and the fragile relationships between humanity and its environment. This wasn't just science fiction, it was a socio-political and spiritual commentary. Herbert poured years of research into Dune, weaving in his knowledge of Zen Buddhism, Islam, and indigenous cultures. The Fremen are a composite inspired by the
Bedouin and Kalahari Sand people
and indigenous resistance movements, reflecting a deep respect for cultural endurance and ecological stewardship. So, why does Dune still resonate? At its core, Dune is a story about the balance of power, political, ecological, and spiritual. It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of Masonic figures, Paul Atreides. The exploitation of natural resources, spice equals oil, anybody? And humanity's hubris. Hubris that flows as naturally as the melange on Arrakis, but keeps you from truly riding the worm. That is this channel. But if you're still with me so far and not lost in the sand dunes, pledge your allegiance to the spice by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel as your Gum Jabbar test of loyalty.
Jabbar!
It burns!
And if you want more chaotic rambles about movies that broke my brain, leave a comment below. Are you team this movie is a mess, or are you team this movie is a misunderstood masterpiece? Let's spice up the debate. See what I did there? Okay, back to the sandworms. When Dune was published, it reflected the anxieties of the 1960s, the Cold War, decolonization, and the nascent environmental movement. The spice trade of Arrakis mirrors real-world struggles over oil and resources in the Middle East. The Fremen, with their guerrilla warfare tactics, echo the Viet Cong and other resistance movements such as the Sufi-led jihads against French, Russian, and English imperialism in the 19th and mid-20th century. Herbert's story was radical for its time because it refused to provide easy heroes or villains. Sure, Paul Atreides is the protagonist, but he's not your typical savior. Herbert deliberately deconstructed the white savior trope, showing how Paul's rise to power would eventually lead to a devastating jihad. In Dune, power corrupts, even when wielded by someone with noble intentions. And I'd like to emphasize that this is expanded even more in the later novels. My favorite out of all the novels is probably Children of Dune, which brings out these themes more fervently. And they also made a series out of this in 2003, which I've never watched. Honestly, maybe I should though. Let me know if you'd be interested in a video of me covering that, because I'd be game to watch it, you know? Then things get weird because there's a descendant that becomes an immortal worm. They even made a cartoon episode based on it.
Those are my cinnamon mines. The power of cinnamon has made me all powerful and invincible.
I don't want to give too many spoilers away. It's not for the faint of heart. For those who are just kind of more casual sci-fi fans, not really like high sci-fi fantasy, you know? Herbert's incorporation of religion is another reason why Dune stands out. Herbert intricately blends elements from various religious traditions, including Buddhism, Sufi mysticism, and Islam, to construct a rich spiritual tapestry within the Dune universe. The Bene Gesserit, a powerful sisterhood, engage in religious engineering by spreading contrived myths and prophecies across primitive worlds, allowing them to manipulate belief systems for their strategic advantage, setting the stage for Paul Atreides to embody the prophesied Messiah, leading to exploration into the dangers of Masonic figures and the consequences of religious fanaticism. Paul's rise as the Fremen's Muad'Dib leads to a universe spanning jihad, highlighting the perilous intersection of religious zeal and political power. Herbert's narrative serves as a cautionary tale about the potential for religious movements to be co-opted for political ends, resulting in widespread destruction. Dune employs a multifaceted narrative structure, presenting events from multiple viewpoints and incorporating extensive internal monologues along with quotations from various in-world historical texts and archives. This approach allows readers to delve deeply into the psychological landscapes of characters, particularly Paul Atreides, whose prescient abilities and internal struggles are central to the plot, while also providing a more nuanced viewpoint of the universe's dynamics from its history and the roles these consequences played in forming the present. The novel's structure challenges readers to engage with its complex political and ecological themes actively. Yeah, it's dense, okay? It's very drippy in its content, honestly. The spice central to the story is also more than just a stand-in for oil or drugs. It's a symbol of enlightenment and addiction, of power and dependency. It fuels space travel, but it also enslaves its users.
Spice extends life. Spice expands consciousness. Spice is vital to space travel.
It's a perfect metaphor for humanity's relationship with technology and resources. In summary, the spiritual and narrative depth of Dune lies in its intricate exploration of religious manipulation, the perils of Masonic leadership, and a richly layered narrative structure that demands active reader engagement. These elements combine to create a timeless work that continues to resonate with readers and scholars alike. Now that we've got some context going on, let's get into the reasons why that David Lynch's Dune didn't work. Okay, let's set this up real fast. You're a filmmaker in the 70s or 80s, and you think, hey, let's adapt Dune. How hard can it be? The answer, yes. As in, Jodorowsky tried and failed, Lynch tried and failed, Denis Villeneuve, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Pronunciation. Villeneuve. Denis Villeneuve had to split it into two movies, and well, whether it has failed or succeeded is really up to your opinion at this point, which I'm sure you will provide in the comments below. Here's the thing, Dune notoriously is hard to adapt, okay? The novel is split into three parts: Dune, Muad'Dib, and the Prophet, and that's just the first book. Okay, that's just the first book out of a huge series that is even expanded more by his son, which I also love. That's right, when you're reading this is a whole novel, but with 3 books in it. 3 big, dense, Britannica encyclopedia parts in this novel. As much as it is descriptive and compelling, it is long, girl.
That's what she said.
That's my joke.
Lynch tried to cram all of it into one movie, which resulted in a narrative that's more incoherent than Harkonnen dinner table etiquette. Speaking of the dangers of religious fanaticism, there's also the danger of just fanaticism, i.e. me. But what I really mean in a larger part is fandoms and stans. And being one of the most self-proclaimed fanatical Dune maniacs out there, I'm gonna try to keep it below 11, okay? Herbert's Dune isn't just one story. It's layers upon layers of subplots, philosophical musings, and world building. It is like the onion of sci-fi.
Oh, you both have layers.
You've got the Atreides-Harkonnen feud, the rise of Paul as a reluctant messiah, and the ecological importance of the sandworms. Oh, and also the Fremen struggle for liberation. Oh, and did I mention the Bene Gesserit's centuries-long genetic breeding program? Good luck fitting all of that into a 2-hour runtime. Another huge part of Dune's brilliance lies in Herbert's use of inner monologues. Characters are constantly plotting, scheming, and second-guessing each other. All those characters in my brain, and ADHD. Maybe that's what Alia had. Alia of the Knife. You get that reference. No spoilers either. I was gonna mention something, never mind. Translating that internal tension to screen is tricky, to say the least. Lynch tried by using VO or voiceovers, but let's be honest, hearing Kyle MacLachlan whisper,
"Here's the mind killer,"
isn't quite the same as reading it on the page. Plus, you end up looking like this. Additionally, Herbert's descriptions of Arrakis, the sandworms, and the spice are so vivid and otherworldly that they almost defy visualization. I would say that they actually do defy our current visualization, but it's better than it was before, okay? I don't know if it will ever be there until we can actually get to
Year 10,191.
to where we actually have Arrakis and they can actually just film it as a documentary. Lynch's Dune certainly tried, but the technology of the 80s couldn't fully capture the scale and grandeur of Herbert's vision. Let's not forget the Holtzmann or Holzmann shields. If you know, you know. And the post-edited, colored-in, rotoscoping blue eyes. Okay, that is kind of good though. I kind of like it. It's a little camp. But you know what? There's some charm. You know what? Powder blue is coming in. That is the hot new color for spring. So let's get into it, even though that's technically cobalt these. Let's journey back to a little bit before David Lynch's adaptation. Alejandro Jodorowsky is a multifaceted Chilean artist renowned for his work as a filmmaker, playwright, and author. He gained significant acclaim for his avant-garde films, notably El Topo in 1970 and The Holy Mountain in 1973, which are celebrated for their surreal imagery and exploration of mysticism and religious themes. He is a master at that, and I am a big fan of those two films. I recommend you watch those. In the mid-1970s, Jodorowsky embarked on an ambitious project to adapt Frank Herbert's science fiction novel Dune into a feature film. His vision for Dune was expansive, aiming to create a 10-hour epic that would serve as a transformative spiritual experience for viewers. To realize this vision, Jodorowsky assembled a team of visionary artists and musicians, including, and I will list them, it's a lot. The casting choices were also equally bold, featuring, here they are right here because they are a lot too. So very ambitious indeed. But despite the innovative vision and assembled talent, the project faced insurmountable financial challenges. The estimated budget escalated to $15 million, a substantial sum for the time, leading studios to withdraw support due to concerns over the film's length, which was 14 hours, and unconventional content. Consequently, Jodorowsky's Dune was never realized. But hey, I'd watch 14 hours of it, maybe not all at once in a theater, but I would parse my way through it. It would take me years. I would have watched it though. Eventually, I would have finished it. The documentary Jodorowsky's Dune in 2013 delves into this ambitious yet doomed project, highlighting its profound influence on subsequent science fiction cinema. The film's pre-production materials, including extensive storyboards and concept arts, circulated in Hollywood, inspiring elements in later films such as Star Wars, Alien, and Blade Runner. Jodorowsky's unmade adaptation has thus become one of the most influential films never made, leaving a lasting legacy on the science fiction genre. However, Alejandro Jodorowsky's attempt to adapt Dune stands as a testament to visionary filmmaking. Although the film was never completed, its ambitious scope and innovative concepts have left an indelible mark on the landscape of science fiction cinema. And again, we go back to the roots, or the spice, if you will, of the problem. The novel's complex world building is almost impossible to translate to film. Currently, and then. Herbert's descriptions of technology, religion, and politics are so intricate that they make Star Wars look like a Saturday morning cartoon, which we won't get into the tea about the Star Wars plagiarism on Dune. Lynch's Dune tries to include all of it, but ends up feeling like a fever dream where every line of dialogue is exposition. Now let's get into that. Now, here we are, finally addressing the Spacing Guild navigator in the room. After Alejandro Jodorowsky's ambitious attempt to adapt Dune fell through in the mid-1970s, the film rights were acquired by Italian producer Dino De Laurentiis. Initially, Ridley Scott was attached to direct, but departed due to the project's extensive development time. Subsequently, De Laurentiis approached David Lynch, who had garnered critical acclaim for The Elephant Man in 1980. Despite having no prior experience with science fiction epics, Lynch accepted the offer, intrigued by the challenge of bringing Frank Herbert's complex narrative to the screen. The production of Dune was a massive undertaking involving the construction of 75 sets and the creation of thousands of costumes to authentically depict the diverse cultures and environments of Herbert's universe. The film's soundtrack was composed by the rock band Toto, who came all the way from the rains down in Africa to the dunes of Arrakis to make it, with contributions from Brian Eno, adding a distinctive auditory layer to the cinematic experience. Say what you will about David Lynch, but the man knows how to create a vibe. The visuals in Dune are stunning. The set design and costumes are pure Lynchian weirdness, and in some scenes it almost works. This was due to his choice and his visual team. The cinematography was led by Freddie Francis, a British cinematographer and director renowned for his work in both horror and mainstream cinema. We all know Freddie Francis on this channel because of how much I've covered in Hammer horror films that he's done, which is why some of them look so good. Francis had previously collaborated with Lynch on The Elephant Man in 1980, earning critical acclaim for his black and white cinematography. Meanwhile, the production design was overseen by Anthony Masters, an Academy Award-nominated production designer recognized for his work on films such as 2001: A Space Odyssey in 1968. Masters was responsible for conceptualizing and supervising the creation of the film's sets, ensuring that the environments authentically represented the diverse and complex settings of Frank Herbert's universe. And the fashion. Let's talk about it. Though it's very polarizing to say the least, the film's costumes were designed by Bob Ringwood, who later gained recognition for his work on Batman in 1989. Ringwood's designs for Dune were instrumental in defining the distinct appearances of the film's various factions and characters. Now, you can't talk about Dune without mentioning the sacred Shah-Hulud, the sandworms. For those of you who still haven't read their glossaries, shame on you. They're iconic. I know people will have something to say about this, but I like the practical effects. I think it was the other stuff they tried to do that was bad. So it would seem that with a dream team like that, David Lynch's Dune would have reigned supreme. Nope. No. No. The production faced numerous challenges, including budget constraints, time pressures, and creative differences between Lynch and the studio. Oh, good old
Universal Studios! Cha-ching!
out here crushing dreams and trying to make the money and suck it out of every fucking American out here.
Cha-ching!
Okay, sorry. Let's not forget to mention Universal's meddling. I think we all know what happens when studios try to involve themselves in the creative process, or just try to eliminate the creative process altogether. The studio demanded a 2-hour runtime, forcing Lynch to cut crucial scenes and condense entire subplots into incoherent montages. Lynch wanted a sprawling 3-hour epic. What we got was a Frankenstein's monster of a movie, nearly wiping out all of Lynch's hopes and visions of the Dune he dreamed, leading him to disowning his own work and calling it a nightmare. So now let's talk about some other issues, mainly the pacing problems, or why the spice should have flowed at 1.5 times speed. If you never read Dune, watching this movie feels like being dropped into a college lecture on intergalactic geopolitics without a syllabus. Yes, you have a glossary, but that doesn't tell you the schedule. Doesn't tell you the due dates. Doesn't tell you expectations. The pacing is glacial.
All means move at a glacial pace. You know how that thrills me.
But at the same time, it crams so much plot into so little time that you're simultaneously enthralled and overwhelmed. It's almost criminal that Universal thought they could condense Dune into a single film. Have you seen the book? Clearly not, because we all know production executives never read.
Illiterate!
It's thicker than a Shahulud out here. This movie feels like it's both moving too fast and too slow. Like it's in a constant state of cinematic whiplash. Or you're experiencing space travel at warp speed. Everything's moving slow and fast at the same time. It's just you're...
Because that's how science works.
Another issue is the translation from reader to cinemagoer on the keywords and terms used throughout. Reading the novel, you usually had Frank Herbert's guidance with his glossary in the back. Well, it doesn't really work so well when people are trying to go to a movie to unwind and then end up having to do homework before the movie.
Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that?
Universal's genius idea to hand out glossary sheets at theaters was somehow greenlighted because nothing screams fun movie night like flipping through a mini dictionary in the dark to figure out what it means. I mean, seriously, imagine being on a date.
Oh, 1 second. Let me look up what is the
Quizat Harak. That's it. I'm so confused. And I can't read in this light. Yeah, good one. See, the Dune 2021 production had it right with the sandworm popcorn buckets. Now that is a conversation starter for a first date, okay? No one's gonna be ever forgetting that date. Let's talk about another issue that also impacted the film's effect, specifically towards fans of the novel. Lynch's decision to include things that were not in the original novels. The weirding modules, not in the novels, but let's call them
choices.
Personally, the weirding way is much more interesting, okay? We don't need modules. Another thing is the ending, in which it rains on Arrakis, which also doesn't happen at the end of the first novel. And I mean, really? And this is my beef with David Lynch on this. Trying to make Paul Atreides a hero and a savior is not a good reflection of the novel either. Okay, his attained power is more frightening and intimidating than celebratory. But here's the catch. Lynch didn't even want this to be the ending. We got good old
Universal Studios.
Thank for that one. It's like they got bored like halfway through it and thought, you know what would make this more interesting? Stuff that wasn't in the novel. Like the novel isn't the Codex Gigas of sci-fi already.
That's a huge bitch.
And while we're at it, let's talk about the acting. Yeah, the acting. Kyle MacLachlan as Paul Atreides is... Although he did redeem himself over the years and even soon after in David Lynch's Blue Velvet, which was fantastic. We've already talked about that in the video I just released right before this one. Patrick Stewart as Gurney Halleck is pretty good, partially because he was trained in the Shakespearean way. And you know, maybe this role served a bigger purpose because it prepared, maybe, him for his wonderful substantial role as the legendary Jean-Luc Picard, one of the top captains in all of Starfleet. But then you've got Sting, who looks like he wandered in from a Mad Max cosplay convention with his metal Speedo. Not a good look, girl. Not a good look. The performances were just all over the place, and the dialogue certainly does not help. So why didn't Dune work? Because Dune is more than just a story, it's a universe. It's a meditation on power, ecology, and human ambition. Trying to cram all of that into a single film was an impossible task, really. And while Lynch gave it his best shot, the end result was doomed by studio interference, narrative complexity, and a lack of time to breathe, or to just stop and smell the melange. Dune isn't just a bad movie, it's an important bad movie, okay? It paved the way. When I say bad, I mean that in a term of endearment, okay? On this channel, we love bad movies, although I think this had its charm anyway. But hey, at least we got some killer sandworms and Sting in a metal bikini out of the 1984 one. But really, David Lynch's Dune is fascinating in its own way. It's bold, bizarre, an experiment that captures some of the spirit of Herbert's novel, even if it stumbles along the way. This may be an unpopular opinion, but I like it. I don't know why I said that. Okay. Yes, it's clunky and it's choppy and it's all over the place and it doesn't make sense and it's weird. I love all that. For an agent of chaos like me, that's part of the charm. It's so weird, but so nice to look at. Honestly, I love David Lynch, and this surreal Dune could have been the right canvas for his surreal, dreamlike style. The floating fat Baron Harkonnen, the weirding modules, and Sting's metal bikini, all iconic in their own way. Just not really what Dune fans expected. As a Dune fan, it's not what I expected either when I first watched it, but I also didn't hate it either, so there's that. Plus, you got our boy Brad Dourif playing the Mentat Piter and making me a simp since day one. By the way, if you haven't seen that video yet, go check it out, okay? It's pretty good. Anyway, that's just what I think, but I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think David Lynch's Dune deserves the hate, or do you think it's a misunderstood gem? Metal bikinis aside. Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you want more strange and weird deep dives into chaotic cinema. And remember, the spice must flow. Just not at 0.5 times speed. Stay safe and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! I don't have any witty repartee after that. I think I said, I just got scared. I swear to God, I just saw that none of this got recorded audibly and I was about to scream. That's my greatest fear when recording these. Okay, anyway, bye.